Hello everyone, Lady Rose here with you today. I am continuing our journey in our tarot course. So traditionally I have 9 lessons within the tarot course. However, if you're taking the course in person, I've sort of compacted it and sped it up a little. So you'll notice that the first few videos aren't really necessarily numbered. I mean, they're part 1 of week 1 kind of thing, but I'm doing that for my students that are taking the course in real life. But I think I might start just numbering them as if you were here the way I traditionally do it. So what we've done basically with the first couple of videos, I think I had 4 altogether, and I named the whole thing The Doorway to the Magic of Tarot, and we've done lessons 1 through 3 in that one. So now we're getting into lesson 4, which is the secrets and traditions of the tarot. So this is part 1 of week 1, or of week 2, sorry, part 1 of week 2. I'm writing this down so I don't forget. Because I make these grand plans in my head, and then when I come to do them, I've forgotten what my grand plan was. So this is another lesson in tarot, the secrets and traditions. And basically what we're talking about, we're continuing our story of tarot, like how to develop that story. We started it in the first few. We started with naming the description of the card, and we did some subjective and objective kind of statements, and being able to distinguish between what a objective statement is, as in like I'm just describing what's on the card, to being subjective to, and that means that you're now sort of translating what the emotion is on that card. And then we went from emotions into creating full stories for each of the cards, and then also connecting those cards and making a story out of the sequence of cards. And we touched on, of course, like the different suits, the special cards, the scary cards, all that kind of stuff. Now these series of lessons are the ones that you would only get if you paid for the course. There are other tarot videos that I have on my channel under the playlist, The Lessons of Tarot. And those are ones that definitely supplement this course. So I would highly recommend watching those ones as well, because they go into greater detail about the cards themselves and the meanings and things like that. And I left those open for public because a lot of that information is kind of out there. However, I have gotten a lot of compliments on how I explain it. So people like the way I explain things for them. And I've sort of streamlined it and made it easier to grasp what the tarot is all about and that sort of thing. But today, this is a paid one. So no one's going to get to see this unless I've shared the link with you. So in this class, we'll be talking about numbers, elements, modes, suits, and synthesizing it all together to make simple statements. And we go into metaphors and snapshots. So just quick kind of reads of the card. Because you'll find sometimes that when tarot readers, like you've probably seen them online, and they go, oh, you got the Queen of Pentacles, so, you know, money is coming in. Oh, the Lovers is here, so you've got the choice to make. And then you've got the 3 of Pentacles here, so the movement forward is happening. But you hit a bump in the road, you know, because they can read really fast, because what they're doing is they're just using the metaphor or the snapshot of that card. So you can read quickly like that if you want to, and then you can go deeper. So a lot of times you'll find readers online that are especially doing free readings are reading really fast, because again, if they're not getting anything for the energy they put out, they're not going to give a lot of that energy. And I can't say I blame them. So we'll talk about that a little more, you know, on that professional level side of things. But right now, we're learning some cards. So this is where we take tarot to an art form. We become intuitive and creative and start to move past the mere formula of spreads. And this is that or spreads of this is this and that is that. We can do this with any card. For instance, let's take the Seven of Wands. Sevens are about putting forth effort, use of skill, getting those things done, and wands are about activity and enterprises and career and sometimes health. This is a number card that is associated with a life event or situation. By looking at it, we can prime the pump, as I mentioned in earlier videos, to get the words flowing. Then you work on making a statement even smoother. So a lot of times priming that pump, just repeating the description of the card, helps to create that sentence or that statement about that card. And even to this day, as a professional reader, I often still start with that priming of the pump of describing what's on the card. And from there, snapshots, statements, emotions, intuitive feeling of the card can come through. Because basically your description is opening the gateway to that. And especially when you're working with a new deck, like, you know, you step outside of the Rider-Waite, it's good to know that. But I know when I took my tarot course, we were all made to use Rider-Waite, and we couldn't get away from that deck fast enough. After we were done being students, we wanted to buy new decks and use them. But then you have to translate them into the tarot, right? And figure out which card means what. So this priming the pump is a very good discipline to get yourself into, so that when you are using that new deck, you've brought it out, you can start by describing the card, and it gets you to know your deck a little bit better. Because even when you start working with it, you know tarot, you've learned the Rider-Waite-Smith, you still have to get used to that deck's energy, what its rhythm is like, what its pictures are like, until you get very familiar with it. And one of the best ways to do that is working with it after you've bonded it to yourself, of course. So like I said, the Seven of Wands is about a life situation. It's usually an everyday kind of situation because it's not a major arcana. It's one of the minor arcanas, in which some skilled effort needs to be put forth towards your enterprise or career. So that's sort of what that Seven of Wands means when it comes up. So we can see we have smoothed it out, but this still needs to be synthesized into the story. Hard work, that's the sevens, equals career passion, that's the wands, which equals the statement of, with hard work and mastery, my skills, this situation will give me the opportunity to move forward in the career I love. So tarot brings information via symbol and metaphor. Again, like I said, a picture is worth 1,000 words, right? And to quote Joseph Campbell, to change the world, you must change the metaphor. And tarot cards are metaphors of emotions, the colors, the faces, the body positions, the way they're looking, the way they're pointing, what they're doing with those bodies, and situations depicted all bring up certain emotional responses. Because the Seven of Wands is, yes, about working hard, and if you work hard, you'll gain that opportunity. But a lot of people, when they see the Seven of Wands, they see a man being defensive and somehow being attacked, or you have to stand your ground on what you believe. That's a very common thread for the Seven of Wands. Now let's see here. So to reflect back like a magic mirror to a client. So this is your job as a tarot reader, as I've mentioned before. This allows the client to stop, think, and adjust their course. This is why, as a reader, your sacred job is the holding of sacred space for them to be able to do this safely and without judgment. So you set up the situation and allow them to continue the story. And how would they react in this situation? Or ask them how they're feeling about what you've just said. Because a lot of times clients find their own solutions in their own discussions. Because we all kind of deep down inside know what is best for us and what we truly want. It's just a matter of whether we want to face it or not. And that's why, as our job, we're acting as the mirrors. Now, sometimes we're acting as mirrors of things they already know. So that's clarification. Okay, you're doing great. And sometimes we act as mirrors of their shadows, of things that they have not wanted to look at, of things they've been avoiding looking at, things that they've pushed under the carpet, so to speak, and swept under the carpet. We're the mirror that not only reflects that, but we lift the carpet and reflect that dirt they've just swept under there. So allow that to happen and make it very clear that it's a safe space, that you're showing them these things. It's okay to be weak. It's okay to have shadows. Now, let's work it out. Let's see what's going to happen. And also, too, nothing is written in stone. I know I've said that many, many times. So, and let's say, oh, this is the 10 of Swords. This never looks good, right? This is always a good card when I'm reading for people. People tend to pull back from this card because it doesn't look very good. But if you don't want this, or let's say, oh, here's the next one, Tower card. Tower cards are always scary too. So if you get this is what your path is leading to right now. I don't want that. Okay, well, how about we change it? So it's not as dramatic, but it is you looking out, holding the world in your hands. You're getting support from one wand here, and then there's the second wand, and this is you making that choice. This is a very kind of cool card that came up because you've changed your mind. You don't want to head towards the Tower. So we're going to put this here. Now you're actively at this table while we're doing this reading. You're already changing your mind. You're already making a decision. Where does that decision lead? It leads to the Empress, to strength, to abundance, that sort of thing. So you can always change the cards. So if they're going to change their attitude or their way of doing things and they really want a heartfelt change, you can go, okay, let's draw these cards. This is what happens when you change your mind, or when you change the way you do things, when you change the pattern, when you release something from your life that's toxic, that's leading you to that Tower. Now you've changed your way, your perspective, and you lead yourself to the Empress instead. So just food for thought. Keep that in mind when you're doing those readings of yours. So the class activity, let's pull the 5 of Pentacles from your deck. What metaphors work for your card? And you write these down in your notebook or your journal or whatever. And then for homework, what you do is you pick a card at random and write the metaphors that work for that card. So, there's metaphors for each card. Now, this is kind of a little funny thing. This was actually shown to me by a student. I always warn everybody, when I show it to you, what you're going to see can never be unseen again. So this is people trying to put up a tent. And it's so true. If anybody's gone camping, you know what a hassle it is to put the tent up. Even the easy ones can be a bit of a hassle. There's sticks everywhere and rods and poles and things like that. And, people try to help, but it's not really helping. So that's 5 people trying to put up a tent. Too many cooks in the kitchen, so to speak. That's the metaphor. So the progression of the suits. So the major arcana are often compared to one's life journey, like big enlightenments, spiritual steps forward, things we have to do in order to reach that next level of enlightenment. It's the whole journey of our enlightenment. Now, that doesn't always happen in one lifetime. It can happen in a few. Sometimes referred to as the hero's journey. That's the major arcana, or the heroine's journey. This journey is about our spiritual and emotional growth and maturity. The major arcana are more about the big picture and the non-tangible progress that we can make, but very important progress that we have to make for our souls. It's not so much about the everyday mundane things, even though a lot of people come in and ask about the everyday mundane things, or the nitty-gritty details. That's more of the minor arcana. This is what the major arcana more represents. But the minor arcana is also about growth and progress, just on a more everyday practical level. Even the mystics of life have to brush their teeth. So, and recognize that there's the sacred and there's the mundane, and you can elevate the mundane into the sacred to make it part of your journey. So in this section, we'll be discussing how the progress of the suits go. Each suit has its own little story, and I think I mentioned in the last video, one of the activities was to lay out the suit on a table and record what you think the story of that suit is. And I mentioned that you might find reoccurring characters and that sort of thing within that suit, because each suit does have its little story, and tends to focus on a particular area or theme. So for instance, Cups, their theme is about love, emotions overall, pleasure, relationships, dreams, imagination, that sort of thing. All those water related, because Cups is the element of water, right? So it's also about our dreams, what we're wishing for, perhaps what we're blocking as well, because there's dreams and there's nightmares, right? So then the Wands, they're more about creativity, pleasure, passion for things in life, spiritual growth, and career and health. And Pentacles is next. It also touches on health. So Wands and Pentacles do tend to talk about health a little bit each. So keep those in mind, because sometimes people come in and want, a reading about their health. They want to know about it. Now, I always preface that with, I am not a doctor, nor the tarot cards, but there's always something you can do to improve your health, right? So broad stroke guidelines, no problem. And I keep in an envelope here numbers for professionals, like counseling, lawyers, if there's a legal issue that someone's come in and asked about. I'm not a lawyer. I can't tell you. This is what the cards say. Here's the number of a lawyer to call. I also have the hotline for suicide prevention and things like that. So I have a list of numbers ready. I have some brochures and pamphlets and stuff like that that I can give out, and I keep them handy, like Alcohol's Anonymous, or if you're dealing with addictions and drugs and addiction and that sort of thing. I keep a lot of those brochures handy. It would be on your best interest to do that as well, so that if you start getting into a realm that you are not qualified to be in, because there can be legal ramifications for that, that you hand them this brochure and go, well, the cards aren't capable of talking to you on the level that you need to be talking about this problem or this situation, whatever it is. Here is the phone number, or here's a brochure about this. So address it that way and know when you need to step aside, because don't let your ego get in the way. You're not all seeing, all knowing, and nobody is. And there are people that are probably definitely more qualified in whatever area you might find yourself roaming into. And then we move from Wands. Wands, like I said, are about spiritual growth, career, things you're passionate about, creativity. It can talk to health. It can a little bit talk about pregnancy and things like that. I don't do pregnancy readings, and I really kind of frown upon people or readers that do that, because again, why wouldn't you just buy a pregnancy kit? Or you should really be consulting your doctor about fertility issues and things like that. Again, that's not my realm of expertise. And the fact that you want a child so badly and it's hanging on whether I say the cards say yes or no, not a good place to put your trust necessarily. The tarot can help in a lot of things, but that's where a fertility doctor might be needed, or even just, a pregnancy test or whatever, right? I know there's a struggle. My sister struggled for quite some time to have her little girl. But again, a tarot reader is not really where you should go for that kind of advice. But Wands also talk about, our passion, where your talents lie as far as creation go. Like if you're a writer or a musician or an artist of some kind, a lot of times the Wands will come up for that. Pentacles, they cover money because they're big gold coins, but also a lot of earth-based material kind of goods, because we all need those things, right? We need the house, we need the blankets, we need the food, you know, all those things to survive. So Pentacles covers all of that, our wealth and our money. It can cover work as well. See, whereas Wands tend to cover career. So if you're in a career that you love, where there's mobility up, sideways, whatever, or if it's like if you're an entrepreneur and you want to work for yourself, Wands tend to come into play because it's something that you're doing that you love to do. Pentacles tend to talk more about work, your job. And job is often jokingly an acronym for just over broke. Because it tends to focus on that, because that's where your money is coming from right now. But where would you like to be as far as work goes? Like, do you want to keep doing this job and having a hobby on the side, or do you want to make it a career, that sort of thing? And then more Wands will come in. And a lot of times when people are transitioning from a job to career, they'll find that there's a lot of Pentacles in their first readings, but then Wands start coming in more and more. And this is a good indicator of when you're kind of ready to jump from, you know, okay, I'm going to give up my job and go to my career that I love to do. And it's risky, yes, but the cards are kind of saying, well, now this could be the time, right? Because you've been sort of honing your skills, sort of thing. And again, like I said, Pentacles can talk about health as well, because if you can't work because of health, then that affects all of, you know, everything else, like the kind of food you can buy, the kind of car you can buy, because of, you know, some bad health that you might have, or disability of some kind or whatever. And then we move into Swords. Swords is a big one, because overall its arcing umbrella is communication, and there's almost nothing we do that doesn't have a communication element. But overall, Swords talk to the mind, the truth, problem solving. They speak about education, communication, like I said, is overall, and legal issues. And you'll find if you sit down with a lawyer, you're going to get a lot of Swords. I have some lawyers as my clients. I have also some correction officers as my clients, and wardens as some of my clients. We are the prison town, Kingston, so there's going to be a lot of correctional officers and things like that. And I find when any of those three parties come to read me, and police sometimes too, but those three for sure, as soon as I see a lot of Swords, I'm like, are you in the law business of some kind? And they might not tell me what, but I'll be like, is it more the prison side of things, or is it more the lawyer side of things? And yeah, I can almost always nail them right away, because a lot of Swords start coming in, and I watch to see what Swords are coming into a spread to sort of help me determine which side of the law, like what part of the law are you a part of? Are you part of it before they get behind the bars, or after they get behind the bars? So the numbers of each suit can be seen as development for the stories. I think I touched on it a little bit in the last couple of videos about, you know, what each number kind of means. There is a handout for numerology traditionally, you know, what 5s mean, what 7s mean, what 8s mean, that sort of thing. But I do have a little diagram, and I like to use this in class because it really helps you kind of see, and visual aids are always good in remembering what numbers are, because there's so many levels to a tarot card that, you know, memorizing them all can be kind of hard sometimes. So, and if you've got pip cards, at least you know where the number is on what I call the mountain. So each number is a number on this mountain, because they're all about a journey. And this is a visual aid for the hero's journey. Okay, so you've got this in your handout, but it says the call to adventure, supernatural aid, threshold guardians, threshold beginning, and transformation is sort of the first part. And then you get a helper and a mentor, and challenges and temptations come up here. And then this is the abyss of death and rebirth. Maybe you have to lose some stuff that you thought you needed, and, you know, you're starting in a new phase. then a transformation happens because you've, let go of some of the weight that you're carrying in this backpack up here. And then you have some atonement. That tends to be more of a 7 thing, like, okay, I made some mistakes. I'm sorry for those mistakes. I'm going back and sort of apologizing to those that maybe have hurt on the way. And then the return and the gift of the goddess is back up here. So, like I said, I've taken a mountain and I've made a story for each of the suits and approximately where they are on this mountain. So this is the ace right here at the beginning of the mountain. Now, normally I have a little house here. So this is you kind of getting the idea. Oh, I'm in my house, and wouldn't an adventure be a great idea to climb this mountain? And then you step outside your house, and this is number 2, and it might be backwards in your thing. I apologize for that, but this is number 2. This is where you're standing at the bottom of the mountain looking at it. You've had the idea to climb it from here, and now you're making the decision. Yes, I want to climb this mountain. So then you move into number 3. And number 3 is, okay, I'm going to start climbing the mountain. Number 3 is the number of first movement. So when you get a 3 in tarot, you know, hey, they're starting to move somewhere. They're moving forward in something. And then we come up here. We've climbed a fair amount, almost halfway. And there's a nice tree here. And we had a picnic basket here. And this is number 4. So number 4s you'll find in tarot, they're always resting in some way. They're lying down, they're lounging, they're relaxing in some way. So that's what number 4 is. That's why there's the tree, because he's sitting and he's going to have his picnic, lunch, and he's sitting under the tree and he's going to have maybe a little afternoon nap after lunch kind of thing. But then he gets up again and he's got to keep going. So this is sort of the second wind. Like, I've climbed so far, I don't want to keep climbing, I don't know, kind of thing. But then I climb and then I hit the summit. That's what 5 is. But this has been a very hard climb up here. So we're transitioning in 5s. 5s are always transitional numbers from a not so great place to a much better place. So although this wasn't horrible, we did transition because now we're at the top of the mountain. We've won the battle. We've climbed the mountain and we're, celebrating it and feeling good and feeling happy. So now we start to come down the mountain, which is the easy part. And that's why we move into a 6, because we're elated from having conquered the mountain, climbed it, and now we're on the way down, which is super easy. It's just climbing down a mountain. And 6s are that number of love and harmony. So there's nothing in our way in the 6. It's not a hard climb like the 5. It's just an easy peasy kind of road. And it's about that harmony that comes in. So when you get a 6 in tarot, they're about to enter, or they're probably at the start of a time of peace, a time of harmony. Things are going really well. Maybe they're there because they're paranoid that now what's going to happen? Like, when's the other shoe going to drop, kind of thing. So then from a 6, you move into a 7. So a 7, remember in the hero's quest, is the time of atonement. So this might be, I've got a bunch of bushes and rocks here, and they're thorny bushes. So they're not easy to get through. It's not very long. It's not like a big long climb over bushes and rocks over here for the 5. It's just a short little wee thing. But it's a time of opportunity, creating those opportunities by, knowing that this is a challenge, knowing that there's a gift at the end of this challenge if I work my way through it. It's also about, a painful time, perhaps going through those thorn bushes, you get pricked, but it's sort of like, it's not painful in the way that, oh, ow, that hurts. It's sort of like, yeah, I deserve that because I was kind of mean to that person to get to number 7 here. Okay, yeah, I wasn't the kindest person in this situation. So this is sort of, because it's not always about you going out and saying sorry to people, because sometimes you can't find that stranger you were kind of snippy with, or, maybe the person's passed on or whatever. So it's about making atonement for wrongs that you've done whether or not it's directly to the person, it's still directed at the person. So that's what sevens generally are. Now there's some good sevens and there's some not so good sevens. So there's actually 2 fairly good sevens and 2 not so great sevens, but they both require some sense of atonement, some sense of I need to muster up and get back to work because I've been just cruising for a little while on the 6, or I need to make amends in some way. Then we move from 7 into 8. So 8 is an interesting number because 8s are infinity, right? Sideways, it's about infinity. So it's about the impossible happening, because you might be thinking, oh my gosh, if I have to do another 7, I don't know if I'll make it to the bottom of this mountain. And 8s are also about opportunities. That's why there's this fork in the road. So there's lots of opportunities that open up after an 8. Again, it's about the impossible becoming possible in an 8. So that's what you think of when you see an 8. An 8 is always a good thing because it's like, oh, great. You've got all these chances, all these possibilities opening up, all these, someone's going to fall into your lap and just kind of guide you the rest of the way. Or there's going to be a lucky break of some kind. Or like I said, the impossible, what you perceived as impossible, becomes possible. This or something better. That's what I usually say when I do manifesting. And this is the number for this or something better. So is a 10 in a lot of ways. I'll explain that in a minute. 9 is the end. You've reached the bottom of the mountain. You can see you're cheering here. This is great. So you've reached the bottom of the mountain. You've reached your goal. 10 is way over here. So 10, and in another one I drew a little hotel over here too. So 10 is the completion of the mountain. You've gone down, which is great, but there's a hotel here and they offer you the 5-star room, the best suite in the place. And you're in your hot tub being served champagne and whatever you like to eat, room service, unlimited room service, and champagne till your heart's content while you lounge around in the hot tub after all the mountain climbing. It feels so good. You're going to sleep in one of the best, softest beds you've ever slept in this beautiful 5-star suite. And you're going to wake up tomorrow morning and have a beautiful big breakfast and life is going to be good. That's what a 10 is. 10 is completing, but then you get all these extra little gifts that come along with it. And that's why 10s are this or something better. So what you started out wanting to do, you climbed the mountain. If you hit a 9, you've completed it. Great. Totally something to be celebrated. You've hit your goal. You've gotten done what you want done. Whether it's like, I want to have a family and children, it's on its way. I want that better career, there it is, kind of thing. I want that better car, there it is. I want to be able to manage myself emotionally better, there it is. 10 is just, there it is, plus here's so much more. So that's a 10. So keep that in mind, because 10s often don't look all that great. Some 10s look great. The 10 of Cups looks amazing. There's rainbows, there's family happy, having good times, but then there's the 10 of Swords, which is the guy lying down on the ground with the 10 swords in his back. Doesn't always look nice. But 10s are always good things. Always, always, always. You can never doubt that. So that's the story of the numbers and the progress of the tarot. Okay, so let me see. 7s are also a challenge. I'm just reading here. How bad do you want it? Is the question of the 7s as well. So lay out each suit and build a story from that suit. I think I asked you to do that in the last one, so I think I'm a little ahead of myself. And then another piece of homework is write the story of the Fool's Journey. So we've done the suits, the story of the suits in the last video was your homework. So this homework for this video is lay out all the major arcana cards, starting with the Fool and ending at the World, and see what his journey is. And keeping in mind that the major arcana cards represent each of the archetypes that we tend to go through. Now, as far as story goes too, so I'm going to give you this so that you have it for stories for when you're doing the major arcana story and that sort of thing. And if you want to take a second look at the suits, you can. So overall, there are 7 story plots in the world. All stories revolve around one of these 7 plots, no matter what story it is. So when you know those 7 plots, it definitely puts you in a different perspective. You can look at books, movies, tarot cards, whatever it might be, and go, oh, this is plot number 1, or this is plot number 5, kind of thing. So the first story plot of the world is overcoming the monster. So stories like Little Red Riding Hood, and a lot of these plots come from fairy tales, which are some of the first stories that were ever told. So because they started out orally around the campfires and things like that, right? I guess it wasn't campfires back in caveman days. It was just fires. But the Little Red Riding Hood, she has to overcome the wolf. And in fact, if you know the original Little Red Riding Hood, you know she has to overcome 2 wolves. And then a Dracula is another example of overcoming the monster. Then the second story plot is rags to riches. So fairy tales like Aladdin, from 1001 Stories, Arabian Nights, and Cinderella is a rags to riches story. And if you look at a lot of movies these days, a lot of them, especially the Hallmark classics, are rags to riches kind of thing. And then the number 3 story plot of the world is the quest. So the hero's quest, for instance, right? But stories that are about a hero's quest are The Wizard of Oz is an example of that. Lord of the Rings is an example of a quest kind of story plot. Then number 4 is the voyage and return, the coming back to where you started out. So some stories that have that kind of story plot are Gulliver's Travels. Alice in Wonderland is another one that's about a voyage and a return. And then the number 5 plot is comedy. So I couldn't really think of any comedy stories per se. I know there's a lot of comedies in movies, and there's romantic comedies. So I'm sure you can think of some kind of comedy. I'm sure Shakespeare wrote something. I can't think of anything off the top of my head that was considered a comedy or whatever. But comedy often also employs other subplots within it, like comedy and overcoming the monster or that sort of thing, or the rags to riches comedy kind of thing, right? So comedy is one of these broad ones that can kind of also marry into any other plot. But it's still considered a plot, right? Because even in theater, they have the happy comedy one and then the tragic drama one. Speaking of which, number 6 is tragedy and drama. Romeo and Juliet, prime example of a tragedy type plot kind of thing, where there's not always a happy ending. And then number 7 is the rebirth plot. It's a little like Voyage and Return, but not quite. Like Voyage and Return tends to have that quest kind of element to it and interacting within that world and then coming back to your home or to your hometown or your back to your world if you've gone to another world, that sort of thing. The rebirth is more like a transition kind of thing. So Sleeping Beauty is an example of a rebirth story plot. Snow White is also another example. Beauty and the Beast, it does have a little bit of the overcoming the monster, but really it's about rebirth because the Beast isn't really the monster. He's the prince who's been cursed and has to find true love and to be kind himself in order to rebirth back into the prince that he once was and become the kind, generous, loving prince that he was supposed to be, not the greedy, self-serving prince that he started out as that caused him to be cursed. So those are some of the story plots. So think of those story plots. Hopefully you've had time to write them down a little bit because they are not in the handouts that I give out. That then you can kind of see what they are within the major arcana. Because the major arcana don't always have a story per se. It's the fool interacting with that archetype. So what is sort of the story plot that would go along with that particular card kind of thing? Because they kind of tend to be a story within themselves. Now we're well over the 30-minute mark here, so I'm going to leave you with that homework. We're still in the middle of lesson 4, but I will have it as part 1 of week 2, and then I'll have part 2 where we go into the metaphor. Okay, there we go. Thanks. Bye.